Hi, everyone. I'm Brad Free with David Aragona. This is the preview segment of Derby Watch, the final Derby Watch in the month of February. And David, let's talk about the biggest stakes race for three-year-olds that will be run this weekend at Oaklawn Park. It's race number 11. Set it up for us.
Yeah, the Rebel Stakes on Saturday at Oaklawn Park. I think we're pretty excited about this race because there are 5 horses on our Derby Watch list that are competing in this Rebel Stakes. And that sounds like a lot, but we've been seeing some lackluster performances, lackluster speed figures to be sure, in some of the recent prep races. And 3 horses in this Rebel Stakes have already run Beyer speed figures in the mid-90s. So we're certainly expecting this race to live up to the hype. Horses like Verifying, Giant Mischief, Gun Pilot, Red Route 1, and also Reincarnate, the recent trainer switch away from Bob Baffert, are all on our Derby Watch list, and Verifying installed as the morning line favorite. Surprise, surprise from the Brad Cox stable.
Yeah, no kidding. This is probably, at least on paper, it looks like the deepest prep race so far this year, with some very good horses. Some are going to be exposed. Some will move forward an inch closer toward the Kentucky Derby. 50 points, 50 Derby qualifying points to the winner. David, I was a little surprised looking back through the history books. And since 1985, the year after the Breeders' Cup was inaugurated, there have been more than 35 Kentucky Derbies run since then. Only 2 Derby winners in the Breeders' Cup era so much as contested the Rebel Stakes. I was a little surprised. I thought there might have been 5 or 6 that at least ran in the Rebel. Those 2 winners were American Pharoah, who won the Rebel in 2015, and also the Triple Crown. And then you have to go back to Smarty Jones in 2004. Are you surprised that the Rebel has not produced more than just 2 Derby winners?
That is a little surprising because we know Bob Baffert in particular has liked to use this race, shipping in for some of his top 3-year-olds, trying to get to the Kentucky Derby. I guess hasn't been quite as successful as he was with American Pharoah, but I know it became a popular path to the Derby after Smarty Jones won it. A horse like a Fleet Alex, who didn't win the Derby, I know he took that Arkansas path about 15 or so years ago. But as you said, recently hasn't been the most productive route.
It really has. I think Baffert has won this race 8 times. And I know that Reincarnate is trained by Tim Yakteen. In my mind, he's still a Baffert trainee. He was when I saw him work last week. At any rate, we're going to talk a bit about Reincarnate in just a minute. But let's begin our discussion talking about the morning line favorite, Brad Cox trained Verifying. He's listed as the 2-to-1 favorite in the field of 11. From a gambling perspective, I think the 2-to-1 is way too short. But from a talent perspective, what about Verifying, David, coming in off that dominating one other than win at Oaklawn Park?
Yeah, I do expect him to attract a lot of support in this race. On the evidence of this race that we're looking at, this allowance race back in January, he has just been flattered by the runbacks out of this race, particularly Gun Pilot, who is back in this Rebel Stakes. He ran in between those 2 races and was an easy allowance winner. And the 3rd place finisher, 2 Eagles River, just came back to win an N1X allowance race with a 91 Beyer last week at Oaklawn. So feels like Verifying is coming in off a pretty strong effort. That performance suggests that he took a big step forward off his 2-year-old season, where he wasn't quite as good as the top 2-year-olds out there. But wouldn't be a big surprise if this Brad Cox trainee took a step forward, because he certainly has the pedigree behind him, being a half brother to Midnight Bisou.
No doubt about it. Gun Pilot came back to kind of reproduce his runner-up finish. He went from an 88 Beyer to an 87. The 3rd place finisher, 2 Eagles River, came back to win an allowance race. His Beyer speed figure improved 8 points from an 83 to a 91. So Verifying, he had a perfect trip, pressing the pace 2 wide in a small 6-horse field, but he was also good enough to win by more than 5 lengths over a couple of next out winners. Now he gets tested for class like the rest of them, including the 2nd choice on the morning line. He's number 5, Giant Mischief. He's a member of Derby Watch, and he's listed on Derby Watch as the 20-to-1 as a 20-to-1 shot. He's 5-to-2 on the Rebel morning line. I guess the question for Giant Mischief is not that how well he ran last time, and we're going to see that in a minute, but where he actually stacks up class-wise. Let's roll the tape on Giant Mischief and watch the start. They all break except for, guess who? Giant Mischief, dead last. David, from here, it's all over for Giant Mischief, right?
You would think so, but this horse does possess quite a bit of talent, and he was nearly able to overcome that disastrous start. You could see here, we're picking it up at the quarter pole. He's ranging up on the leaders and is almost able to get there, but the eventual winner, Wild Atlantic Storm, is able to hold him at bay. Pretty clearly, Giant Mischief ran the best race on this day. This was his first time going 2 turns. He was coming out of an allowance race at Keeneland, where he faced off against the Bob Baffert-trained Arabian Lion. They both got big figures for that race. Arabian Lion hasn't run well since then. Obviously, Giant Mischief came out with this good effort, but I'm a little bit concerned about this horse stretching out to further distances. He really has much more of a sprint pedigree on the dam side. His dam vertical oak really didn't want to go beyond 6 furlongs, and Brad Cox himself has expressed some trepidation about this horse being a true classic distance type. So I think we'll get some clues about that on Saturday.
Well, not only does he have the pedigree situation to overcome, but as well as he ran in defeat, and he probably was best in the Springboard Mile, the truth of the matter is that race has turned out to be entirely counterproductive. If you fire up Formulator and go back and check the horses that ran out of the Springboard Mile, 6 of them ran back, and there has only one of them has subsequently won, and that was a claiming race on a sloppy track. Even the winner, Wild Atlantic Storm, he came back to work again on January 6th, and then he kind of fell off the planet. So Giant Mischief, yeah, he ran well, but who did he run well against? Maybe not much, and he's facing a very good field on Saturday in the Rebel, including California Shipper Reincarnate. I like this horse a lot. I think he's the real deal. He's the son of Good Magic, trained by Bob Baffert his first 5 starts. He'll be making his first start for trainer Tim Yachtine. We're going to roll the tape of the stretch run, David, and tell me what you think about Reincarnate down on the inside.
Yeah, I think if you've watched all of Reincarnate's races, this last performance was really encouraging because he's been kind of a goofy horse that doesn't always have his mind on running, and it felt like this was the day that he put it all together. He received a challenge from Newgate at the top of the stretch, turned that one away, was game to battle back inside of horses, and even though that was only going a mile, he certainly gives every indication in the way that he runs and trains and just his physical makeup that more distance is going to be better for him.
Well, he went fast on the front end, under pressure, 45.57 half mile, 109.55 for 3/4. He's supposed to pack it in, but he fought back. And not only did he fight back, but he fought back against a good horse because the runner-up Newgate validated the performance when he came back to win the Bob Lewis in his very next start. Newgate subsequently sidelined. The 3rd place finisher in the Sham Stakes behind Reincarnate was National Treasure. I expect to see him next weekend at Santa Anita in the San Felipe. Don't know that for sure, but those are 3 very good horses running in the Rebel Stakes that we just took a look at, verifying Giant Mischief, Reincarnate. David, is there anybody in the field of 11 entered in the Rebel Stakes? I'm a big fan of Reincarnate. Is there anybody else we haven't discussed that you're kind of curious on how he might perform?
I'm interested to see how Red Route 1 runs for the Steve Asmussen barn. He's coming out of that 2nd place finish to Arabian Night, who is the leader on our Derby watch right now. So you want to see some further validation of that race. Obviously, one of the horses who finished further back in the pack, Sun Thunder, came back to run well in the Risen Star last week. And Red Route 1 closed more effectively than Sun Thunder did in that race. And he feels like yet another one that's supposed to be getting better with added ground and experience. So I'll be interested to see what kind of late run he can put together in this Rebel Stakes.
Red Route 1 is listed at 10-1. He will be rolling in the lane. He can only win if he catches those front runners, pace pressers, verifying and or Reincarnate. Really good edition of the Rebel Stakes. It's race 11 Saturday at Oaklawn. Okay, before we wrap it up, we have to talk about our on the bubble horses. And one of the bubble horses is closing in on his first graded stakes race. And his name is Eyeing Clover, trained by Brad Cox. He's the son of Looking at Lucky. His most recent start was phenomenal as a Fairgrounds one other than. David, he's going to be in your backyard in the Gotham Stakes in about a week and a half. What about Eyeing Clover?
Yeah, that Gotham is shaping up to be a pretty interesting race. I'm not sure how if it's going to have significant implications on the Kentucky Derby, because a lot of horses that targeted are more one-turn types, and I think we don't yet know if Iron Clover is the kind of horse that wants to go a mile and a quarter. He's won sprinting, he's shown a lot of speed, has won both of his races pretty easily, and I think they're looking to learn some things about him in that Gotham Stakes. But he's definitely a horse that has shown some talent in his first two starts.
No doubt about it. And they are using, his connections have said, we're using the Gotham Stakes as a prep toward the Arkansas Derby in early April. So Iron Clover gets tested for class. He's 2 for 2. That race is in a week and a half. Another horse coming in soon to a stakes race is Wadsworth. His two most recent starts were both since he was gelded and both since moving to synthetic. Now, normally I wouldn't say a synthetic horse that's recently gelded is a Derby candidate, but Wadsworth has definitely taken a step forward. I'm not going to put him on the Derby watch list quite yet, David, but he's an interesting horse headed to the Battaglia in early March.
Yeah, I think we definitely want to keep an eye on this Turfway route to the Kentucky Derby. Obviously, last year's Kentucky Derby winner Rich Strike did go through Turfway Park. I mean, horses that run in these races, they do receive the berths to get there because they're just worth that many points. So Wadsworth feels like a horse that could be a major player in a race like the Battaglia. I'm also thinking of the Wesley Ward trainee, Fantastic Again, who's pointing towards the Jeff Ruby Stakes. He was very impressive winning a stakes race at Turfway earlier, and there are usually some turf horses that take a shot in those races too. So Wadsworth has looked impressive. We'll see how they ultimately do on dirt in a race like the Kentucky Derby, but they're definitely horses that can get into that race through the Jeff Ruby Stakes.
No doubt about it. Bishop's Bay, we talked a little bit about him earlier. He was a maiden winner with a 97 Beyer speed figure. The runner-up got a 96, a very good colt trained by Brad Cox. We don't know where he'll start next. Sun Thunder, Dennington, and Cagliostro. We've talked about them in the earlier segment. They're likely, all three, we think, likely to show up in the Louisiana Derby. Sun Thunder did not crack the Derby Watch top 20 list because David and I both had reservations about putting 3 horses from the Risen Star onto the list. But with 24 Derby points, Sun Thunder, David, is just about into the Kentucky Derby already, right?
Yeah, I think we want to respect the points, and we do want to eventually put horses on the list that are getting 30 and 40 points, even if we're not the biggest fans of them. Sun Thunder might have to achieve another placing at a further prep if he's going to secure that spot in the Derby. 24 does kind of put him on the bubble right now, but you just want to see these horses that, as of now, are sort of one-hit wonders, confirm that their last races weren't flukes.
We'll find out in late March, I think, in the Louisiana Derby. Same with Dennington and Cagliostro. Those are 6 horses that we will continue to monitor. We have a lot to look forward to this weekend in the Rebel Stakes. Verifying is the 2-1 favorite. California shipper Reincarnate going to try to validate his most recent win in the Sham. Looking forward to seeing Arabian Night back on the work tab Sunday or Monday, according to Bob Baffert. Arabian Night missed a workout this week, so something to monitor. And then, of course, next week, David, a very busy week. Forte, Breeders' Cup juvenile winner, makes his comeback in the Fountain of Youth. We have the San Felipe and the Gotham Stakes. It's Derby season, even though it's only February. For David Aragona, I'm Brad Free. We'll see you next time.